Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to St. John's in the Village. My name is Father Graham Napier. I am the rector of St. John's and the curator of our overall educational and arts programs here at the parish. It's a great pleasure to be hosting this wonderful event tonight on the eve of the commemoration of the 9/11 terrorist attacks, when the subject of tonight's symposium is, in fact, peace, approached from many different faith perspectives. We run this in collaboration with the Psychotherapy and Spirituality Institute, which began here at St. John's in September 1975. So we're celebrating that anniversary throughout this year. In the reception following this concert, you will see the lovely Wade House, one of our two townhouses, which was the home and genesis of PSI back in 1975. I'll now hand over to Sarah to say more about tonight's event.
Good evening. My name is Sarah McCaslin. I'm the Executive Director at the Psychotherapy and Spirituality Institute. I'd like to thank Reverend Graham Napier, the lay leadership of St. John's, and the facilities team for making this evening possible in this beautiful and historic space. Our event in this room will conclude at 7:15, at which point everyone is invited into the solarium and the garden for a reception. On behalf of the Psychotherapy and Spirituality Institute, I welcome you to this sacred moment and this sacred space that we create in being together. On this, the eve of a tender anniversary, and in this time rife with division and hatred, there is no better moment to welcome this conversation of peace and interrelatedness. I'd like now to introduce Professor Ravi Khudija, whose efforts and interest have brought these esteemed leaders together and made all of this possible. So thank you to Ravi, and I'll hand it over to you now.
Thank you, Sarah, PSI, our hosts here at St. John's, our audience both here and online, and especially to our revered teachers. To set the stage for what we're trying to do here, I'd like to begin with an aspiration prayer from Dolpo Sangye, the Buddha from Dolpo, the great Jonang Lama. May I teach the Dharma in all my lifetimes. Even if unable to teach the Dharma, may I bear the great responsibility of upholding it. Even if unable to uphold it, may I just stand watch with concern for the Dharma and fear for its decline. May I remove the sufferings of all infinite beings who are my parents. Even if unable to remove all their suffering, may I be their companion in suffering. Within this are two guiding principles for what we're doing here today. The first is that Dharmic traditions don't preserve themselves. It takes people like our teachers here who are willing to take on the responsibility of upholding it, and I think it's safe to say that all of us who are here are at least watching with concern and care for the Dharma. The second is that we care for the Dharma because we believe it has an important role to play in eliminating suffering. And so putting these two things together, the question is, how can we preserve and maintain our Dharmic traditions in a way that speaks to today's challenges? And we have a lot of challenges today, and the theme, the one that we're going to be working with today, is about boundaries. So we live in a fairly boundaryless world. Think back to your grandparents' or great-grandparents' generation. They probably likely practiced whatever was being practiced in their communities. But today, especially because of technology, we can be exposed to people and ideas from all around the world. We can get a Tibetan pointing out instruction in the morning. We can drop into a self-inquiry practice in the afternoon, and then in the evening we can ask ChatGPT to tell us about Sanskrit mantras, and I guarantee you those mantras are going to be hallucinated and wrong, but we can ask it nonetheless, right? So it's a completely different world. Now, there are two challenges that come about because of this world. One is that we can browse endlessly, but do we ever feel like we belong in the same way that our grandparents might have? So we can feel like a guest everywhere, but at home nowhere. That's one challenge. The second is that faced with this boundarylessness, there's a reactive tendency. For somebody who wants to try to build up new boundaries, rigid boundaries, where their tradition is the best and only people who agree can belong. Now, our Dharma traditions haven't always been fully responsive to these two challenges. We don't always meet the needs of people who are lost in boundarylessness, and our traditions can sometimes be misused to help build up those rigid boundaries as well. So this new state of the world requires new conversations that give people a home, but a home that invites in guests. And so that's what we're trying to do here today. I cannot think of three better teachers to be engaged in this sort of conversation. So we could introduce our teachers by giving a whole list of their accomplishments, and because our teachers are so accomplished, that would be the entire session. But what I'd like to invite our teachers to do is to talk about two stories. Each of our teachers has two stories of how they've moved beyond boundaries, a story of their lineage and a story of them personally. So I'd like to begin with you, Swamiji. Pranam, Swamiji. You're a Swami in the Advaita Vedānta lineage of Ramakrishna Paramhans, and he was famous for practicing across all sorts of different traditions. And so can you tell us the story of him and your lineage and his famous phrase, Joto Mot, Toto Pot? And then for your personal story, you went from being a Swami to a student. So you enrolled in classes at Harvard to study Madhyamaka Buddhism, which many people would say is a tradition that is in stark contrast to your own. So I'm hoping you can get us started with both these stories.
Thank you, Ravi, and namaste, everybody. Namaste to the audience, and also the big online audience, which you're saying that we have a virtual presence of some 700 people here. Yes, so I'll start with the lineage which I represent, and that's a complex story because it is Vedanta in a specific sense, Advaita Vedānta, in a broader sense, all the schools of Vedanta, and even more broader sense, all of Hinduism. So that's the background. But a couple of points I'll make there, and then come to what my own experience. One is, if we look at the history of Hinduism and Hinduism as it is today, it is tremendously diverse. And one reason for that diversity was not just a tolerance of diversity, but an acceptance and celebration of diversity. So if you go back to the very beginning of the Hindu tradition, thousands of years back to the Rig Veda itself, the very famous oft-quoted line, Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti, which means the truth is one, but the wise speak of it differently. And that gave permission and indeed encouragement for diversity. So a variety of philosophies, a variety of mythologies, practices, rituals, tremendous variety. And at no point did anybody feel that this is true and everything else is false. That's simply not the Indian way. So that's at the very beginning of the Hindu tradition. Now we come down to my particular tradition, Sri Ramakrishna, who is seminal here. In the late 19th century, probably the greatest figure in Hinduism in late 19th century. And somebody described him as a glutton for God. So not only did he explore his own tradition, he was a devotee of the goddess Kali, of God in the form of the Divine Mother as Kali. And he had mystical visions of Kali. But he explored into multiple Hindu lineages and very easily beyond that into Christian mysticism, Islamic mysticism. And he finally declared from his own experiences, actual mystical experiences, Joto Mat Toto Pot, as many faiths, so many paths. So they are all paths, they're all valid, and they will all take you to the truth. And that he speaks not from a dialectical or philosophical perspective, but from a mystical experiential perspective. All right, so that's the background. My personal story, the one which it's more of a personal fascination I had. I was just telling you, when I was being trained as a monk in our tradition, I came across this book in our library, Professor T.R.V. Murthy, The Central Philosophy of Buddhism, which introduced me to Nagarjuna and the Mula Madhyamaka Karika and the Madhyamaka school. I still remember one of my senior monks, a teacher, correcting me. He said, it's not Madhyamika, it's Madhyamaka. So I became fascinated. I was hooked. Because here is something which seemed like my favorite philosophy, non-dual Vedanta, and yet very different. It's like looking at a mirror image of yourself. Enticingly similar, but also extraordinarily different in some ways. And so I kept up an interest in studying that by myself. And I remember doing a thesis. In fact, one of the Acharyas, masters in our training, humorously nicknamed me the Shunyavadi, the nihilist, the emptiness guy. Here's the emptiness guy, he would say. And then come 2019, I was lucky to be selected for the pioneer program for Hindu monks at Harvard University, at the Harvard Divinity School. And to my surprise and delight, Professor Garfield was teaching Madhyamaka. And in the first class, he said, if you can do Madhyamaka, why do anything else? He loves Madhyamaka. So that was a fascinating course for me. And I have kept up my interest in Madhyamaka.
Tashi Delek Rinpoche. So you are a Lama who specializes in the Jonang tradition with its Shentong view and its Gala Chakra practice. But you're also a Rime master, and you have studied under 25 different teachers. So can you tell us about the Rime movement, the non-sectarian movement in Tibet? And I noticed that so many of the Rime masters study Shentong. So tell us about Rime and Shentong, and then for you as a teacher and you as a student, how did you manage to learn all these different traditions, and how do you pass them on as a Lama?
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. So first, I learned just different attitude, because usually people stay at one monastery. They think this is my monastery, this is my tradition. I have to stay there forever. People sit like that. But I just have a curiosity. When I study in one monastery and they have break, study break, and then see other tradition monastery, I go there, how they teach and everything. So then I see they have a different culture, different way of study. So that's making me interest. And also they have a little bit different view, and also they little bit different behave. So then different behaves, something you not get used, then people have kind of little bit how to say, they have some kind of not used to them, so they think, oh, it's not so good. They have this judgment. But you know, even you, just some individuals not behave so well, it's not according to your judgment, and then you judge the other or tradition. It's not so. It's so not real, because when I go inside, oh yes, oh this some individuals not behave well, but then there is excellent ones also there, and there's medium ones also there, because I explore all of them. So then I develop different view. So then that's why make me more interested to go or traditions. So that's why I went to study. So in the past, the Rime movement, I think also in Tibet, for some time they developed some sectarianism, and then they have some fight, like these things happens, and then they sick of this, no good, and then people kind of like, oh, we should promote Rime. So their Rime movement is like more study the other texts, and then they put together like these things. So usually well known is a few Rime paths, like some Sakya, some Kagyu, some Nyoma. But I think earliest start actually the Jonang Khentrul Rinpoche, same he started. He make 100. He went everywhere with his walking miles and many valleys, many months, many years. He went everywhere, visit different tradition teachers and receive teachings, and he put together. Even today exists 108 collection. So that's Khentrul Rinpoche he start. So I had the opportunity. Is easier to travel better than it was hard in the ancient time. So that's why easy for me to go everywhere and try to study. But 2003, I first wrote Rime, means unbiased. Basically, I explain every tradition, Tibetan traditions, views and practices, and then give reasons. Everybody should have this unbiased view, work together. I wrote that book and offered Dalai Lama. So then Dalai Lama, he very appreciate, and he asked me to write bigger. So then I thought about, and then I thought, oh, if it's bigger, then I should write international religion, but that's not easy because in Tibetan we don't have resources in my language, so I have to learn a new language. So I learned English after my 40s, in my 40s, okay? So then I learned new language, same time try to learn all traditions. Reading why impossible, but many people's help. So this way I achieved a book, Ocean of Diversity, achieved after 12 years, took 12 years. Okay, so that is how I become Rime. So, but to philosophical point of view, I prefer Jonangpa point of view. But also I realize my Rime means this unbiased view. I explain a little bit different than others because others say, oh, we all same. But my way is we don't have to be same. We should have value the diversity, and we need diversity. So also we can have favor. You can have your favorite food, even you appreciate all different traditions, different food and like this, but still you can have your favorite food, but also the most healthy food you can choose, right? So same way, I choose Jonang view, which means very close to the Vedics and this Shivaism and these things. So Tibetans, majority of Tibetans, a little bit doubt, it's really pure Buddhism. It's too close to Hindu. They have that view, but I prefer, that's become my favor. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
Pranam Acharya ji. So you are an Acharya of the Nepali Sarva Amnaya lineage. And in Sanskrit, Sarva Amnaya means all the classical traditions. So your lineage itself is based on the idea that you can bring together and integrate many different lineages. Now, many of us have this idea of that, Hinduism's in India, Vajrayāna is in Tibet, but people don't always know as much about Nepal. In Nepal, you have Shaivas, followers of Shiva, Shaktas, followers of the goddess, and Vajrayāna practitioners, interchanging. Sometimes they worship and practice at the same temples, sometimes even to the same deities. In fact, for many people, I think, who, we mentioned rigid boundaries, many people will be shocked to know that you're actually authorized to initiate people into Vajrayāna deities like Vajrayogini. So can you tell us about the Sarva Amnaya lineage and then your personal experiences doing what you call samashti and vyashti, practicing across these different transmissions, integrating them, differentiating them, what that's like.
Thank you. I have to start a little before Sarvamnaya to give you my background. I grew up as a Pandit, and most people don't know what that means in today's environment. A Pandit is someone who studies classical shastras very carefully, trained by the classically trained masters, the lineage holding masters. So when I was going through these trainings, for us, it is essential, it used to be essential, at least till my generation, to learn as much of Buddhist philosophy as we are learning Nyaya or Vedanta or Mimamsa, the schools of Hindu philosophy. We memorized Nagarjuna, we read Chandrakirti's commentary, we read Shanta Rakshita, we had to memorize Vijnapti Matrata, Vasubandhu. We ultimately read Pramana Vartika, including the commentaries. Why was this so necessary for a Pandit to diverge into Buddhist philosophical texts? Number one, we did not view Buddhist philosophy as the other, but integral to the system. But at the same time, our job, we are polemical, we are trained to argue, but it's not to argue for the sake of argument. Each of these great masters are synthesizing their highest experiences and grounding based on logic. And if you do not understand Nagarjuna, you do not understand Gaudapada, the prominent Advaita Vedānta philosopher. If you do not understand Dharmakirti, you do not understand Abhinavagupta. His extensive commentaries on Ishvara Pratyavijñā are actually like a categorical commentary addressing of the positions, examination of the articles of Dharmakirti. So this is the classical background of training. Maybe you may find it interesting, when I was reading Dharmakirti, many of my colleagues were from Sarnath. They are the Buddhist monks, and they are now actually eminent Buddhist scholars. They were studying under a Hindu monk, Yogindrananda. And we would have a debate, and we'd have a battle. We'll enjoy the lunch together, and then go back to our battle. And then ultimately, when some things could not be resolved, we all, or at least Guruji, would go to our main Guru, Swamiji Bharati Swami. So we did not view these shastras, texts, as outside of our system. Now then, I have to address Sarvamnaya. You can get this yantra called Sri Yantra. In our manuals, we literally worship the Buddhist philosophies, Madhyamaka and Yogacara, as a deity. And likewise, Advaita Vedānta in the Bindu. And of course, we view our own Trika system as above these. Just like Ramaji mentioned, why is there that type of preference? It's about not negating or rejecting some ideas based on a choice. It's about meticulously examining, on the one hand, logically examining all these categories, and at the same time sitting in meditation and exploring without biases. to the extent that when I was a student, I would sometimes have to defend the Madhyamaka position and battle with my colleagues, and if I lose my dignity. So it's not about just simply following some positions. In practice, what I realized in my personal life is we as Pandits incorporated our studies of the Buddhist philosophies up till the works on Dharmakirti, but we have not gone far enough to read Tibetan materials. Fortunately, like I'm from Nepal and happens to be like a Dolpo Pashendra Gyatsen also happens to come from Nepal, and that is the lineage holder we have here with us. And so I have tried in later time on my own to explore the teachings of the Tibetan lineage holders, including Namkhai Norbu or Dalai Lama himself and whoever the masters I can come across. And how do I get that type of freedom? Is it just a new agey funk looking for anything, or is that something integral to our system? At least from 12th century onward, the manuals we have integrate, coming back to tantric practices, the Vajrayāna deities like Vajrayogini or Vajravairochani or Ācārya Tara, or all these deities are trained within Sarvamnaya. Not just that, particularly in the context of Nepal, our Shaiva lineage concludes in the Pashupata order. And the Pashupata Vidya, there are many, many Pashupata Vidyas. These are secret mantras. So ultimately, some of the ultimate mantras integrate the teachings to the extent that Shiva Tattva is invoked also as Vajradhara. And as you know, Vajradhara is the central deity in Vajrayāna practices. So these systems are not cooked up in some 20th century for the American market consumption. These are long lineages with the total openness to learn throughout these contemplative traditions. And what if most of the questions I find among students when I say is, which is greater, which should I follow? And that is where I lose them, because I'm not looking for people to follow. People should understand, people should examine, people should contemplate with their open heart. Because Buddha did not say you should follow. Buddha did say, Parikha bhikkhavo grahyam madvacho natu gauravat. Hey monks, first examine what I'm teaching. Do not follow my words because you respect me. And so I think that type of openness is needed. What if one turns out to be a little lower than that? If you check the map of Everest, there are these two peaks on the side. One is called Lhotse, another is Nepse. What we are arguing is which mountain is greater. We have no intention of climbing. We just want to enjoy our Manhattan life. And so that is why I like to avoid these conversations with people with zero interest in plunging and diving into the depths of these teachings, but just want to say something about it without practice and without proper training. Thank you so much.
So this brings up something that I guess I'm fortunate to say that I guess you're my teacher from YouTube, but I've studied with both of you, and maybe you're the world's Advaita teacher over YouTube, is that sometimes people ask, why even bother to study within a lineage, right? So I've learned now that there's Advaita Vedānta, but then there's something called, I think, Neo-Advaita, and this is, I guess, you're like, you say, oh, I'm hungry, and they say, well, who is the I that is hungry? It's like hours of this sort of stuff, but they say they get effects. I could study with Rinpoche, but then that's within a lineage. But now there are all sorts of people who teach, they say, oh, mindfulness meditation. We know that there's scientific benefits to this. Or there's an app now that they have that you can complete Shine. They say it's a Shine app. They call it Jhana, Dhyana, right? Or, Acharya Ji, there's all sorts of people who find mantras. Maybe some academic published it, or maybe it's in a book. And then they say, oh, here, I can initiate you into mantras. No lineage. So in this sort of world, there are people who claim to be your counterparts. They say, I can teach Neo-Advaita. You don't have to read Drigdrishya Viveka, that's complex. Here, Neo-Advaita. You don't have to study, you don't have to take refuge, just practice secular mindfulness, pragmatic Buddhism. Or here's my Neo-Tantra, we go on a $10,000 Bali excursion. So they say they're having benefits. So can you tell us, why bother with lineage? What's the importance of lineage in today's era?
Yes, from Sri Ramakrishna, for example, for all his universality and acceptance of all different paths, he also, he gave this little parable of the man who wanted to dig a well for water. And he started digging, and digging is hard work. So somebody said, try there. And he went there and tried there. Somebody said, try there. And he went and tried. At the end of the day, he had dug maybe 6 shallow holes and didn't get water anywhere. And the idea is that if he had stuck to the first place, he might have got water. Because water is generally, you have to dig a little deeper or climb the mountain, as Ācārya Ji said. So there is the importance of a lineage. It's good to have a home tradition and then be open. This day and age is the day and age of the democratization of all knowledge, including spiritual knowledge. And the modern technologies, the internet and everything, they're just opening it up to the whole world. It's already out there. It's not even a question of debate it's already there. It's already part of our lives. So this syncretic approach is already part of our lives. So the question now remains, what is the use of a tradition? The use of a tradition is, it protects and it conserves and develops and nourishes these traditions. If you don't protect it, for example, this place. So it's part of a tradition, an ancient tradition. And we have it today because of both things, of being rooted in a home tradition and also being open to all of us today. So I think that's the way forward, to preserve the spiritual heritage of humanity and then throw it open for everybody, encouraging people to have a tradition. Sometimes people have 2 traditions. Professor Clooney, who teaches at Harvard University, he says he belongs to 2 traditions. He is a Jesuit priest, a practicing, preaching priest, and a professor, but also he is very spiritually involved and academically involved in Hinduism, in Vishishtadvaita Hinduism. So a home tradition, maybe 2 home traditions, and being open to many to learn and enrich oneself, one's own spiritual life, and contribute to the communal harmony also.
Okay, why to stick to lineage? For me, this is very easy. In India, Nepal, our traditional meal, we used to have 84 Vyanjan, meaning 84 different dishes. And people here would say, I want a burrito, or a piece of pizza. And if you are offered 84 different types of food to eat, you have no idea how to even start eating. So Sarva Amnaya is 84 different dishes. And if you can have all the flavors and the taste, why to stick to a little piece of pizza? Why not to try more? And it's then, is it worth sticking to any lineage or tradition? This is particularly relevant for 20th and 21st century, where we have noticed a great decline of traditions and the New Age experiments, and a claiming of absolutely zero lineage and zero authority to pick up some online teachings from this master or that and then claim someone as a guru that the person has never even met in life, and then start your own teachings. And one thing comes is you read their experiences, so overwhelming, and I'm not questioning all these experiences. I am only saying that why is Nagarjuna or Dharmakirti not spending substantial amount of time writing their autobiography of mystical experiences? Why is Shankaracharya or Abhinavagupta not spending equal amount of time of their mystical journey and all the mystical heights they have reached? Moreover, why are they wasting their time so much in rigorously examining the positions through logic? If these were just your private personal experiences, never to be validated intersubjectively, they did not see this as a business of a personal matter. None of our acharyas in our three traditions have come up to claim, because I have this experience, you should not examine it. They have openly challenged to examine, question, and then go to that experience ultimately. Each of these masters, the founders of these experiences, I am sure had more profound experiences than some junkies having some drugs. You know, but these, you know, how too much is like drug-induced experiences, hallucinogenic experiences, are compared to Tathagata Garbha or Brahman experiences in today's market. And why to stick to tradition? Because these are examined in the last 2,000-3,000 years by millions of sages and rishis and monks and lamas and acharyas and siddhas. And why just to listen to someone who is simply trying to sell some experiences so that he can have the money from your pocket to go to his pocket? That is why I find learning through lineage profoundly valuable. Thank you.
Yeah, Rinpoche, please.
Okay. I have a short answer. So I think if you know somebody, the generations they are doctor, and then you know this from the young age, I've been doctor, and you know like now is like 50, 60 years old. You would go that one, or you know you somebody you don't know. You just say, oh, I'm doctor. Somebody you know before, he's not doctor. He's some kind of musician or something. But tomorrow say, I'm doctor. Then which one you go, you know? So that's, I think we have to think about. Many things, there's a gross level, many things same, but then and more deeper level, there's many things involved. Visible things can be look the same, but invisible phenomena always there is. So that's why it's lineage means the invisible level. Even you see it as something same, and the visible level, but the invisible level, there's the most power and blessing should be in the invisible level, you know. Yeah.
Okay, Rinpoche, can I stay with you? So many of our students, right? So we come and we realize that in Buddhism you have the thoughts that turn the mind to Dharma, right? And so we see suffering in our lives and we want some sort of solution. And we realize that maybe some dharmic path is the solution for us. But then there's so many different paths. So then how do you advise students on how to select a path? How do you know if it's the right one for you? Do you have to pick one and then follow it for a long time? When do you switch? How do you switch? How do you make sense of this? Because for us as people who are trying to learn these traditions, it's a paradox of choice. There's so many. And then I basically have to have a PhD level to know the differences between these. So we'll get to this later today to discern the precise difference between Advaita Vedānta, Tantric Śaivism, Shentong. I've studied this now for 20 years. I have no idea. So then how do we even get started? So how do you advise a potential student on how to pick a path that's right for them?
Yeah, I think the best thing is from the beginning, you don't expect too much, right? You don't expect too much, and you open-minded, and you can experiment anything. But then when you have some ideas and you feel differently, the idea something differently, some explosions, and then I think the most important thing, this who's presenting this teaching and this path, what they care about, number one, what this person, what dedicated on, what has been dedicated, what will dedicated. The priorities, are the priority is the family or business or something else? So I think that's also one factor you can a little bit, even we don't say judge, but of course we everyday judge. So that is the best way to judge. And also to judge yourself. Because sometimes people always external way look and judgmental, but not judge oneself. So then I think that's where maybe start.
What Rinpoche was telling just now reminded me of in the Upanishads there's a criterion, a triple criterion. How do you select a teacher and a path? So 3 words are there, akamahata, brahmanishta, shrotriya. Shrotriya means there must be a tradition, a lineage. So it shouldn't be a fly-by-night operator, I am enlightened. Says who? Says I. And who else? Nobody else, but I am enlightened. Maybe it's possible, but you don't know. Would you want to trust your spiritual life to such a person? You wouldn't generally. If there is a tradition, a lineage of spiritual seekers and masters and teachers stretching out over centuries and millennia, and there are many such lineages in India and in these Indian traditions. So that's one thing, a lineage, a certified lineage. So for example, you can ask, you're teaching these things. Where are the texts? Where are you teaching from? You should ask. You should check. That's one. The second thing is akamahata, which means literally, if you translate, means not damaged by desire or not destroyed by desire. So what does the teacher want from me? What does the organization want from me? Does it primarily want my spiritual growth and benefit? Or is there a big money angle to it? Is there a big power angle to it? Is there a political angle to it? Those things are usually red flags if you're a serious spiritual seeker. So that's the second thing. The teacher should be primarily interested in my spiritual growth and benefit, not to make a quick buck out of me. The third is Brahmanishta. Literally, if you translate, it means centered in Brahman. That means this teacher must be basically, as Rinpoche said, about spiritual life. Is it about business, or is it about politics, or is it about spiritual life? Is the teacher centered? Is this teacher, he or she, entirely about spiritual life, about becoming enlightened oneself and spreading the teachings to others? Then it's all right. So these 3 criteria.
Thank you. In the Shaiva lineage, we have this dictum from Yogini Hridaya, Parikshitaya datavyam vatsarardho shitaya cha. You should give these teachings to the students that you have yourself examined and to whom you know for at least 6 months. So in the traditional times, even not too long ago, even among my gurus, this 6 months went to 6 years, basically. You are being examined and tested in God knows so many different ways. But how can I make those practices relevant and at the same time not violate these agamic codes and still make it applicable in the 21st century globe? So I am, frankly speaking, scared because I can make mistakes in the dissemination. And if I make mistakes, this is for Lord Shiva to judge. And that awareness itself keeps me focused to be truthful to the Dharma, to lineage. But most importantly, what we believe is in Shaktipada. That is, only upon this urgency within your heart to realize, to recognize your true nature, because Shiva is already within you. And only when that starts waking up, you have this desire and urgency to learn. So when a student comes, all we have to do is how strong is his desire to learn this system. And so because now the responsibility is shifted to Paramatman, Lord Shiva, because I do not own the system, I do not make the system, I only let the water flow through me, just like a pipe. And so my responsibility is to not make it muddy, or not to add chemicals from my part, but to let whatever the water flew through the lineage of my gurus to continue to the future generation. So we as teachers have the type of responsibility, but what helps, at least particularly in Sarva Amnaya, is we train students gradually. You do not get all the teachings at once. It's not like you went and heard some enlightening mantras and then you understood everything. We have students to do meticulous repetition and meticulous studies, and then they go to second stage, the third stage, 12 stages. Most people will not stick, and a teacher will have substantial amount of knowledge of the habits, of the study. One additional factor, at least when I'm practicing these teachings, is because now Sarvamnaya is a tantric lineage, and today most people who come to learn Tantra for all the wrong reasons. So I throw them into studying some meticulous shastras. People do not like to read books. And then they run away. They are coming for magic. They are coming for whatever healing or, whatever things. And when they realize that this is going back to school, they run away. And so then I know who were not meant to be with me. Thank you.
So in Dharmic teachings, there's basically two general approaches. One is a negation approach that deconstructs. One is a more positive approach that affirms. So in Vedanta, we have neti neti. You reject everything and then you get to the truth. In Buddhism, we have Prasangika, Rungtong school. And they are very proud that we never say anything positive. All we do is we reject. Right? But your three traditions are unique because you have the negation part, but you also make positive statements about the highest principle. And as a professor, I'm speaking now, and this is a real concern of mine, is when I see the younger generation, the warning always from people who favor negation is, oh, you'll reify, right? You need to deconstruct. But I think for young people, at least from what I see, the world's already deconstructed. They see that money has no intrinsic value because it's inflated. There's no fixed laws of nature because of climate change. They don't believe that they have some sort of fixed self because their identities are always being questioned. They're always being negotiated. So I don't think that they're all enlightened. I don't think that this deconstructed world reduces their suffering. And I think what's unique about these traditions is that, Rinpoche, you're willing to say you have Buddha nature, and it has positive qualities. There's something good, right? So all three of your traditions are willing to make positive statements. And so I'm wondering if you could, for the students who are ready, for the people in the world who already feel that there's no inherent existence, everything is contingent, everything is empty, could you give some encouragement from your tradition of what is the positive view of who you are? So to help us overcome this nihilism that's out there, because it is very real, and I think it is very damaging.
Yes, okay. I think the majority of Buddhists, as you said, like more negating and deconstructing, focusing. So my tradition, Jonangpa, focusing both, but even more interested in the Buddha nature. This innumerable quality of ourself. This is a true ourself. They are, even you can't fear temporarily, but it's just within ourselves. Try to build a confidence on that. That's Jonangpa. But then Tibetans, not all, but many of them, they think, oh, that's too much. They see it as like the Tibetan Buddhism, they emphasize there's no self for person, there's no self for phenomenon, nothing. So then Jonangpa say, oh yes, there is the relative level of the conventional ego self, and this, like this kind of what we see things is not real, but there is truth in it. Then said, oh, then you are Hindu. So like that. But probably that's why I'm wondering, like the others think, as you said, oh, everybody have struggle in even, this low self-esteem and everything, so why you do that? But I think there's a little bit different, you have to understand, like you know this, intellectually you know, me and my body, everything is not really real, but just appears real. If you understand intellectually like this, or you can feel a little bit like that, it's not necessarily to take as like low self-esteem. It's more easier because it's in this life, in this world, modern world, I think the most difficult people have too much rigidity. Too much rigidity, that's why it triggers too much, because you use, you worry too much, basically. Everybody worry too much. You can't live in the present. You just or worry too much. What's the next happen? Okay? So that's why I think this one, you just kind of like open and relax. Because, for instance, if you dreaming, then if you are really chasing by a monster or something, but if you realize, oh, it's a dream, then you are more relaxed. But still you see the monster, you still see yourself, but you know it is not real, it's a dream. Similar way, this way I have to benefit. Is meant to be benefit, to understand this is meant to be benefit. You're not too rigid, you're not too fixed, you're not worried too much, you're not too intense, basically. So that's why I have to help. And then we say, oh, the ultimate truth, Buddha nature, Tathagata Garbha, is is true yourself. That should be encouraged, not discouraged, But I believe the other way, Ramtongpa's teaching, I think is very discouraging. Sometimes just people like emptiness because something new world, that's why they like this. But if they really understand emptiness, empty self, everything is empty self, both of two to the empty self, then it's, I see it's very discouraging. And the opposite is encouraging. And also the Indian and this most religion is more a positive side, and God, and you follow this, and devotion is kind of like more encouraging. That's how I see.
And so Swamiji and Ācārya, I'd love to hear your perspective too. And I would say the people who feel that haven't read the Ratanagotra Vibhaga, so they just would be benefited by reading it. I would love your perspectives on both the value of the positivity, but then also how you have a positive approach without falling into the problem of reification or eternalism. So you've thought about this, and so I'd love your thoughts.
It's a great point. Yes, we live in a world of relativity. We don't know what our values are, what do we believe in. But this is a kind of an untrained approach to negation. So what happens is, there's a saying, if you don't believe in something, you'll fall for anything. And that's what you see happening a lot of time. People I don't believe in God, I don't believe in this, I don't believe in that, but I fall for fake news. That happens all the time. Now, as Rinpoche pointed out, we are actually quite similar. These are all non-dual traditions. And there's another level of similarity which you have pointed out, which we'll come to. I remember reading this book, The Non-Dual Tradition in Indian Philosophy, Chandradhar Sharma. And there he says that these, I think, 4 schools he classifies as non-dual philosophies of India. One is the Madhyamaka school. The other one is the Advaita Vedānta school. The third one is the Kashmiri Śaivism school. And the fourth one, I think, was the Vijnana Vada Yogacara school. So they are non-dualist schools. In comparison, and they have a big element of negation. Not this, not this. World is like a dream, like an appearance. Let me contrast it with the positive traditions in India, as Rinpoche just said, who are not represented here. So multiple theistic schools of, there is God, and there's a heaven, and there's an afterlife, and you have to believe in this, you have to surrender, you have to worship, and there is grace, all of that. So that's very positive. What is the problem, if you're going to find a problem? The problem is, it's difficult to believe it in this day and age. In 21st century, today, in the last 150 years, we have the largest number of atheists or agnostics ever in history. Atheists and agnostics have always been there with us. But how do you see the dualistic paths, if I label it that way, they do not begin unless you have some kind of faith. You can't question from the very beginning. Whereas in these paths, one big selling point, if I may use the word term, is it's extremely logical. Each of them in their own way. The Madhyamaka path, of course, is hyperlogical. And it will answer your questions. It is based on experience and logic all the way through. It is an experiential teaching. So that's one big thing. The second point is positive, the positive side of it. All of these traditions, if I may take the broad picture, it says that there is an ultimate reality. With a lot of caveats, we are very careful with each other. But when you're talking to a general audience, we'd all agree there. There is an ultimate reality, a positive reality, which is existence, consciousness, bliss. Not a thing, but being itself, absolute existence, consciousness, bliss. And you are that. What could be more positive than that? You are the absolute. Even the greatest of dualistic schools don't go so far. They don't dare go so far. Or you can say there is the Buddha nature. And that is does not fall prey to the fourfold dialectic of Nagarjuna, the Chatushkoti Vinirmukta Tattvam. So that is your nature. Your real nature is the Buddha nature. or the para Shiva nature. Your nature is Shiva. You are Shiva, or the Buddha nature, or being consciousness bliss, Brahman. It doesn't get more positive than that. And all of them claim you are already this, not something to be accomplished, something to be realized, yes, and which is not easy, but it's not something to be that you have to go from here to there, or you have to wait for the millennium to come, or something to happen. It's already a fact. What could be more positive than this? And then there is the more subtle point of that, where the Jonang school and the Advaita school in Kashmiri Shaivism, even in the philosophical niceties of it, they are much closer than many parts of the rest of the tradition. But we will explore that.
Sarvo mamayam vibhava ittevam parijanata vishwatmano vikalpanam prasarepi maheshita. When you recognize that everything that is manifest is your own pulsation or expression or glory, even when your conceptualizations are outward, even then you are always situated in the Shiva nature. So yes, the ultimate Shaiva teaching is the reaffirmation of the phenomenal. But we do not just start from this reaffirmation. I'm saying it's a reaffirmation, not affirmation. And it's because we integrate both the approaches. In the Upanishads, you find both the approaches, neti, a negation, a meticulous twofold negation, nasadasit, nasadasit. In Rig Veda, you find this multifold negation to get somewhere. In Madhyamaka teaching, of course, we have the Prasangika and Swatantrika, we have Chandrakirti and Buddhapalita, the classical commentaries where the negation, different types of negation, the Swatantra or Prasanga types negations, affirmation of something or just a pure sheer negation, these were not just simple logical gymnastic tricks. These were the exalted experiences of a yogi seated in deep meditative state. And how does Sarvamnaya integrate both? Is for us, first we start as the Samhara Krama, the order of dissolution, in which we take the philosophy of materialism to be true, and then we say, but there are certain things that materialism cannot explain. And we go on and then ultimately we go to the ego. This ego is not the ultimate Shiva nature. We question and we dissolve, we negate the ego. What comes back is the backdrop upon which the ego arises, the Brahman. And that is after you experience the absolute void, the absolute shunyata, only then you can reflect upon the Brahman nature, because it's in presumptive logic that it cannot exist without of something being there. And after that, when you get to the point of singularity, we trace back. You are in Bindu, the central drop in a metaphoric mandala, and then we trace back our journey towards the world we call the order of Srishti or Srishti Krama. And in that, we reaffirm Shiva nature to our ego, to our intellect, to our sensory faculties, and everything that our sensory faculties grasp, the world, the reality, the pulsation, the vibration of consciousness, everything is re-established in the Shiva nature. Therefore, we are not simply saying this is wrong or that, but what we do is the classical dispute, if you may, between Dolpopa Senrib and Shakya Chokden, for example, in Tibet, or in the own tradition within Advaita, we integrate both the approaches and use them actually for cultivating the highest meditative state. Thank you.
Okay. So the whole idea here, and I think Rinpoche, you talked about this, is that if you all believe the same thing, there would be no point in conversation. It's like you never learn something new by talking to yourself, right? So there are some differences. And one of the things that we could do is to play a game. And so I want to play a game with you, all right? And this is going to be called Agree, Disagree, or Let's Discuss. And so I want to give you, there's 6 topics. I've seen a lot of debate on what are the differences between various traditions. And so I want to talk about 6 different topics, and I'll read a statement, and I want to see if you agree with it, if you disagree with it, or you say it's a little complicated, let's discuss, okay? We just need like a game show music, and then, you know. So you all make positive statements. So you might call it Atman or Brahman. You might call it Buddha nature. You might call it the Samvid. But you all have a highest principle. So one question that's debated is this highest principle, we'll start easy, very easy. Is this highest principle something that's separate from us, something outside, or is it something within us? So some traditions might envision God on a cloud in the heavens, and that's the highest principle, and it's separate from us, right? Others say it's within us, in our own minds, in our own consciousness. So who agrees that your highest principle is something separate out there? Who thinks it's... Disagree. So who disagrees and thinks it's within? Okay, so all 3, it's within.
I find it a bit complicated because...
I thought you were supposed to start easy.
No, I will not go long, but why it is this very projection of inside and outside is the game of the mind, and in the Shiva nature, the categories inside and outside do not apply. That's why. Thank you.
Like he said, but I'll put it this way. That is the ultimate reality in Advaita Vedānta, is not outside you or inside you, it is you.
Literally, my wife was like, I guarantee you someone is going to ruin your plan in the first question. I thought it was so simple, so you were right. Okay. So we talk about this enlightened mind, right? So it's not a God in the clouds, right? But it's something to do with our own consciousness. That's why we talk about consciousness. So is this now something, this enlightened mind, is this something that we have to create through our effort? Or is it something that already exists and we need to discover? So some traditions say it's like a seed. You have to water the seed, and then it'll grow, and then eventually with enough effort, you'll have the enlightened mind. Others say the enlightened mind is like, it's like you're a poor man, and buried in your backyard is a big treasure. You might need to dig it up, but it's already there, and it's already all the gold you could ever want. So which of you, would you agree that it's like the seed that you have to create? Or would you disagree and say it's like the treasure that's always already there?
It's already there.
Already there.
Already there. Already there. Okay. Okay. So this enlightened mind now, the next question, is it different for different people? So some traditions, like, we have a cup there, right? And so I might have a cup, and you might have a cup, and you might have a cup. And there's space within a cup, right? So some might say Buddha nature or the Atman is like this. It's like, I have my Buddha nature, and you have yours, and they're different, right? So it's like the space in a cup, or the space in my house. I have space in my house, you have space in yours. They're different spaces. Other people would say, well, wait a second. Isn't it true that space pervades all the houses, and the houses are in space? Space is not in the house. Okay? Does that make sense? Is that too esoteric? Okay. So who would say that the enlightened mind is separate? Each of us has different? Agree?
No separate, the same time, different. No separate.
Okay.
No separate, the same time, in that level, 2, 1, plural single, no contradiction. Many aspects and one is no contradiction. It's go beyond. These contradictions only play in the relative level.
Yes. So Rinpoche, you were teaching me this over the summer. What you said is, for the lowest person, you have to say, I have Buddha nature. You can't say, I am a Buddha, because we're relative level. Yes. But then higher than that is to say, no, it's all Buddha nature.
Yeah.
But then even higher than that is to say that the whole difference between singular and multiple goes away.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah, go beyond.
You go beyond these distinctions. Ācārya-ji.
Again, I would not, of course, say it's outside of me. But again, Shiva nature is not within me. I am within Shiva nature. Shiva nature permeates all that exists. And this me is a ripple in the ocean of Shiva nature. Thank you.
It's interesting to see how one could easily agree with both points of view and disagree with them also. Because this is non-duality, all traditions, and therefore language has a problem with this. So you can phrase it in a particular way which will be absolutely acceptable to all, but one can still find philosophical differences in it. So if you ask Advaita Vedānta, it is one. It's non-dual. More than one, it's non-dual. But that non-dual also is all-inclusive, all-encompassing for all difference. As Rinpoche said, you even become comfortable with temporality, with impermanence also. So all of that is also included. But even the word included one has to be very careful there. There's a word, there's a way of including it in Vishishtadvaita, there's a way of including it in non-duality.
So when we realize this enlightened mind, the question then becomes, how does this enlightened mind relate back to the samsaric world, right? And some traditions would say that the samsaric world disappears completely. Others would say that the samsaric world becomes divine. So 4 options. I want to see what you agree with and what you disagree with. One view would say that when you become enlightened, there's no experience at all. So the mythical wish-fulfilling jewel. It's like in India and Tibet, there's a jewel that if you just make a wish upon it, it'll give you what you want, but the jewel is not conscious. And some people say maybe an enlightened person is like that. Does any one of you agree that an enlightened person has no awareness whatsoever?
No, not agree. Not agree awareness. It is aware everything, but you don't need any effort to manifest.
Okay.
Not manifest with effort, because it's the manifestation. When we say manifestation, is a receiver's version of the, not their version, not enlightened being's version. Is a receiver's version.
So none of you are followers of Chandrakirti then. Okay. So the second option is this, is that when you become enlightened, you only have an experience of nirvana. So you experience awareness and bliss and non-duality, but you don't experience anything of samsara whatsoever. No. Agree? Agree.
Yes. Yes, I agree.
Yes. The problem is, these things can be interpreted even more subtly. Like we said, none of you are followers of Chandrakirti, but what I would say is when Chandrakirti says, none of this exists, there is no awareness at all. There's only the Buddha nature, only that which cannot be stated. And then I guarantee you, Chandrakirti would turn around and say, this is it. The way I would put it is, in terms of Tibetan Buddhism actually, that's one of the best formulations I have found, and I've been repeating it recently, is that on the primordial ground of being, under ignorance, that primordial ground of being under ignorance appears as samsara. And on enlightenment, that primordial ground of being appears as nirvana. So it is still the same thing. But let me make it even more simple without going into such subtleties. After enlightenment, will you experience the world? Yes. And technically, no.
In the Dharma Dhatustava, Arya Nagarjuna gives a metaphor of a stained cloth, that if you burn the stained cloth, the stains go away, including the cloth. But then the next example he gives is the polluted mind, and when pollution goes, and the commentary comes, but the mind remains. And I find this like a really intriguing, because someone like Nagarjuna would not choose a metaphor on critically. Because if the metaphor of a cloth and burning is to be taken, then the mind is burned down, and there is not something the mind to see. For us, what does it remain? The Shiva nature was there to begin with. The Shiva nature is there to continue afterward. For a simple reason that we are not hallucinating. This world is real, an expression of Shakti, integral to Shiva. So, but when we go back to say that it is Maya or Mithya or projection or hallucination, and any of the metaphors, if we have to explore on critically or even critically, I wonder how to reconcile the continuity or perception of the everyday phenomena in that absolute state of realization. Thank you.
Yes, excellent.
I love that metaphor. But I had heard this metaphor from a monk, an Advaitic monk, but it's very interesting. He said you have two options. It's always great when you're given options. So you have two options. You have the stained cloth. You can either burn it or you can wash it. If you burn it, then you're still fine. You are the Shiva nature. Nothing has happened to you. But you will not have this individualized experience anymore. That's the end of this limited play, this little game which has been going on lifetime after lifetime. But you remain as Shiva nature. Nothing happens to you. Or you can choose to wash the cloth and let it remain for a while, and you have a spiritualized experience from one particular perspective, an enlightened master maybe. So you have this option. You can choose to burn the cloth, or you can choose to wash the cloth.
Okay. You're all too sophisticated for my simple examples. Okay. So the other two options were, one is that you continue to see samsara, but you see through it. So it's like all your life you saw shirts and dresses and pants, but now you've realized that there's cloth. So I thought that's what you would say. Yeah. Okay. Then the final example would be one of you actually see samsara as a manifestation of the enlightened mind. So it's a real manifestation. It was only because you misunderstood the nature of samsara that you suffered. Now, once you realize it, you delight. And that's when I thought Ācārya would go. So Ashu, you were right. I completely, it wasn't as simple as I thought it would be. Okay, this one will get you. All right. So some traditions say this enlightened awareness is just pure awareness. Right? It's static. It doesn't change. Because if it changed, it would be impermanent. It would be limited. It would be conditioned. Other traditions say, no, this pure consciousness, or this enlightened mind, it has qualities. It is dynamic. Because if it wasn't dynamic, how could it ever interact with the world and be helpful? So this one I think I'm going to get you. Who agrees that the enlightened mind is static?
Static means I don't know.
No change. No change.
No change.
So just pure awareness, that's it. Peace.
No changing, not impermanent, not changing, not impermanent. But there are some traditions, I think, that if it's not permanent, they think it's not functional. Like Gelug Pawe, they think it's not functional. But it's not true. That's only applies in relative level. And ultimate level, you can be permanent at the same time. You can function much more than relative and permanent functioners.
That's right, Jay.
Oh, I would agree with Lamaji here. And how would that work is the Shiva nature, there is one line I keep repeating all the time, Asthasyat eka rupeda vapusha chen maheshwara maheshwaratvam samvitvam tad atyakshat ghatadivat. If this Shiva were to stay quietly without ever changing, where would there be the lordship, and where would be luminosity of consciousness? It would be just like a pot, like an object without changing, without having freedom, without having reflexivity, vimarsha, without having volition, ichha shakti. So we do not agree to that type of stagnant and very old consciousness. Thank you.
Yes, often that is a critique of Advaita Vedānta, that you're speaking about a static consciousness, unchanging. But I would totally agree with Rinpoche here. It is not changing, but it is not static in the sense of being in contrast to changing. Rather, it is that which can be experienced as unchanging and changing. So it's put in this way. Why did that ultimate reality create all this? It could have just remained unchanging. Well, then the question would have been exactly what Ācārya ji said. What a useless ultimate reality that is. It didn't do anything. And if it does something, you be complain, why all this samsara, so much trouble? So now what is the poor ultimate reality going to do? I mean, there are only two options. Either it will do something or it will do nothing. And luckily for us, both are true. It does something, here you are, and it's also, as it is always is, unchanging. So it is that which is beyond change and changelessness, and manifested as changing and the unchanging. Look at our own experiences of waking, dreaming, sleeping. Our waking experience is full of change. Our dream experience is full of change. Our deep sleep, as long as it lasts, in deep sleep, is utterly static. But what are you? Are you always sleeping or waking or dreaming? No, you are beyond all three. And yet you are that in which all three appear and disappear. A state of change, a state of no change. They are states which come and go. You are beyond both.
And so for the last question, is that if this enlightened mind has some dynamism, some qualities to it, as we develop it, do those qualities ever manifest into our experience? One tradition might say, no. The ultimate reality is always the subject. It's never an object. You can never experience it as something. But other traditions, especially those who follow Tantra, would say that no, Buddha nature can be perceived. So when we practice in Tantra and Tantric meditation, we hear nada. We hear unstruck sounds. We see, in Tibetans, tongzuk. We see Shunyata Bimba, we see visual representations. And these are different than just the pot of water. So how many of you would agree, disagree, or want to discuss whether this enlightened mind ever manifests into experience? Something we can see, something we can hear.
Yeah, I agree to see, to hear, which means you see something is not conventional color and shape. If you conventional color shape, you have to see through your eyes, and you cannot see the darkness, but you can see in the darkness. And you can hear something. It's not your ear hearing. You hearing through your the consciousness, pure consciousness. You hearing. But the hearing and seeing everything has limited, not the full, the Buddha nature. You go higher and higher, then you see more and more, and then you hear more and more. You experience much more.
Ācārya ji.
In the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, there is a dialogue in which a line comes. Pashyan na pashyati nahi drashtur drishter viparilopo asti. It is seeing does not see. There is no cessation of the seeing of the perceiver. This line has been very confusing. Actually, there is a lineage, pre-Shankara lineage, that gives us different commentary, and Shankara gives a different commentary. Tantric philosophy actually follows a pre-Shankara commentary and develops from actually this position that this pure consciousness is Persian. Not seeing objects in the object sense, but its intrinsic nature is agentively seeing. And Jigranna, Jigrati, like all that. Meaning, this constant awareness has fundamental characteristics to see, meaning have a sensory experience, and to have agency. To see requires agency, and then it has freedom. To see, I need the freedom to see. So this absolute consciousness is intrinsically free, is intrinsically woven with volition or Ichha Shakti, and is agentively, actively functioning in the seeing, not of seeing of things, but reflexively, Vimarsha Shakti, reflexively being aware of itself. And in that reflexivity, that Vimarsha, either the world arises, if there is the zeal, Kramosisriksha, the urge to unfold in sequentiality. If there is the urge to create sequence, then there is the manifestation of externality. If there is no urgency to constitute sequence, then there is no manifestation of sequentiality. Having or not having of sequentiality or externality is not to define whether consciousness is active or not. So this is why we view consciousness as absolutely free, reflexive, and filled and replete with volition, Ichha Shakti. Thank you.
And Swamiji, I love your perspective. Does Brahman ever manifest as some sort of thing that one experiences? Like, I know in Tantra they talk about Nada, Bindu, these sorts of things. Is that there within Vedanta?
Interestingly, whatever Ācārya ji said, on this question, Advaita would say just the opposite. It say that there is no reflexivity there is no volition there is no activity there, it is beyond all change, it is ever peace itself, it's just serene light. And yet, it would not be very different from what he said, because all change, volition, all reflexivity is also because of that one light. So, let's put it this way. Water is not a wave in itself. But the waves out there in the ocean, none of them are different from water. They cannot exist without the water. So all experience that we have, our ordinary experience which we are having, is because of that pure consciousness. Without that pure consciousness, this could not be possible. We won't be able to see, hear. And therefore, the Kena Upanishad says that in every experience, one can see through the experience to the ultimate reality. But the ultimate reality itself never becomes an object of experience. But every experience, in a sense, manifests that ultimate reality. This is as far as Advaita goes. But Tantra goes further and would talk about a whole range of mystical experiences, alaukika, which help you to see that ultimate reality, actually, which are what Sri Ramakrishna would call Vidya Maya, Navidya Maya, the Maya of knowledge and the Maya of ignorance.
So oh, please.
Can I have a question?
Yes.
You finished?
Literally, I was going to say, now we're at the point where we're going to do questions. Okay. So I want to invite the audience to submit your questions. In order to do so, go to menti.com, 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 and the code you're going to enter is 3488-4613. 3488-4613. Menti.com, menti.com, and the code is 3488-4613, and all your questions are going to pop up on my iPad, and I'll interweave them into the conversation. But before we get to your questions, I wanted to create an opportunity, because as far as I know, this is the first time we have truly living representatives of these three great Dharmic traditions in conversation with each other. And so I wanted to first give you the opportunity to ask questions of each other. I think so far we've learned a lot about the different traditions. So please, Rinpoche.
Okay. I have few questions. I choose one by one or?
Yes.
Okay. Firstly, I would like to know what does Tantra means exactly, the words Tantra, what it means. And also, Tibetans say, we call Sangha means secret mantra. Is that kind of, we named that. But some people heard that in India, there's no such thing secret. It's just a Tantra or mantra. So also sometimes mantra and Tantra, sometimes people have, because we don't know the language, that's why we not 100% know. We just rely on, as some people said. So that's why today's opportunity to hear both of you. Thank you.
Ācārya, this is your...
Thank you, Lamaji. I think this is a question to me. Tantra literally means a system. Tantra is supposed to provide 4 things. 1, the ultimate philosophy, what is the true nature of reality. 2, yoga, the path to bring that experience in our everyday life. And then how to live in our society, like course of conduct. And then what is our daily ritual or yearly calendrical rituals or observations. So basically Tantra is a system, and in the Shaiva context we have agamas. So there are like 92 agamas. I don't want to go in detail, but in that essentially there is not really much of a difference, because we start from the Shiva mandala, where there are 5 faces of Shiva. We call Pancha Brahma. This is almost identical to the Tathagata Garbha, as explained in the Guhya Samaja Tantra in the 1st chapter. So it's just a parallel to Guhya Samaja, Tathagata Garbha Mandala, or the Shiva Mandala, just for example. And then like in Dharma Sangraha, the Buddhist text, we have these Vajrayogini, Vajravarahi, and ultimately Chandika. These are the deities explicitly mentioned belonging to Vajrakula. These are all actually the deities that we practice in Shaiva tradition, not exceptionally Vajrayogini only or Vajravarahi only. Chandika, actually, we start the teaching with a Chandika. What about secrecy? We are supposed to have these things absolutely secret, but in our times, the masters are violating the codes, and therefore, in some accounts, that type of secrecy may have not been maintained, but traditionally and textually, agama-wise, we are supposed to follow that. And you can compare the Vajrayāna agamas, Chakrasambhara or Tathagata Guhyaka, and then compare them with any of the Shaiva texts, you will find tremendous similarity. Thank you.
Is there what is the benefit of the secrecy? Do you know that? And what is mantra and tantra different meaning?
Oh, thank you. What is the benefit of secrecy? Lamaji asked me for 2 reasons. We view from the believer's perspective, these mantras are extremely powerful. And powerful doesn't mean we are hiding it from you, but without you authorizing to practice those levels, if you just casually go and start doing things, unforeseeable, mostly psychological consequences can happen. You need, therefore, a mentor who himself has practiced these things for a long time. And what is the mantra? If mantras are the spells, they basically, these phonemes, they appear almost not having meaning, but these mantras distill particular experiences like almost a system, and then encapsulate within these phonemes and are transmitted through lineage from master to disciple. A master who has himself, we say Jagriti, awakened the mantra awakening. And then when it is disseminated, that awakened mantra has to go and stay within the disciple. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have, in our tradition, we have, apart from Advaita Vedānta, the philosophical part, we have initiation into a mantra, and that is secret. So the guru initiates the disciple. It is private to that person, and the more you keep it secret and practice within yourself, it nourishes the mantra.
More power.
More power. The more you express it, it is lost.
So this is answered already. 2 questions I'm seeing. One is, what is the value of receiving a mantra from a lineage? Is that someone needs to awaken the mantra, and that's the guru. The second question that's already answered is, what is the function of deities within your system? So as Ācārya Ji said, these mantras are forms that emerge out of this non-duality. And so by worshiping them, we can go through to the ultimate reality. One question that we're getting is, you all have been talking, and I failed at this. I tried my best to create a fight, but I couldn't do it. So now I'm going to use this question. They say, you've talked so much about similarities. What is one difference you really think you find between your 3 different traditions?
Yeah. So I cannot judge my personal level. I'm not learned enough for the all traditions, but due to the lack of language. But everybody, many people believes that the Tibetan Tantra and then the others Tantra, Indian Tantra, they say they have no bodhicitta basis. That's they believe. Okay, so that's true or not? Maybe you need to explain what is bodhicitta means in Tibetan, right? So even the conventional motivational bodhicitta, you have to have just love, kindness, compassion is not enough. You have to have this motivational bodhicitta. So is that true?
Yeah. So the idea of bodhicitta is a Mahayana idea. Originally, in the original teachings, it's thought that when you attain enlightenment, you do it as an individual, as an arhat, and then you sort of are transported to the other shore. But the question becomes, well, what about everyone else? So in the Mahayana path, bodhicitta is this awakening mind that says, I don't want to get there until everyone gets there.
Also, Tibetans believe that if you have no bodhicitta, then you practice Tantra, could be go wrong, like wrong and become powerful demon and like these things.
Yeah.
So they believe that.
Yeah.
So, and they believe that the Indian, these people, Tantra, they're not emphasizing this.
Yeah.
So my question is that true?
Lamaji, at least in the popular imagination, that is true. But in actual lineages, I would say that's not true. So there's just like what is popular and what is actual lineage. And in actual lineage of Sarva Amnaya, we therefore meticulously educate students to cultivate Shiva nature. And that is why we first start with the Shiva. Shiva, by literally, Shiva translates as compassion, Karuna. Shiva is a Karuna. So there is no categorical difference. Or we cultivate Bhairavi Bhava, the nature of Bhairava, that is repleteness, fullness. And then, only then, we are supposed to initiate the students. So, but what we see in the market is, you are right, it's not happening in all contexts. People are rushing to become a guru and giving mantras for black magics, but that is not how Tantra works. That is not what it is ever meant, because all the Tantras, mantras come from agamas. And then we have to therefore go back to the agamas and see whether they are actually telling the way I'm saying, like the primacy of jnana. And mantra diksha comes much later in the 3rd section, after teaching philosophy and after teaching yogic practices. Only then students are given initiation into mantra. But in the practice, in the market, what if that is not happening? They are doing random things. We really cannot control how people do violate the tradition.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank
so one more, two very important questions. One is when we say tantra, you know, like I ask many like Indian average people, not scholars, average people, ask them, what is tantra? They understood is like black magic. If you ask Tibetans what is tantra, they don't know, you know, the average people, they don't know, but something very respect, something very high, very respect. They don't know, no idea what it is, but something very high. But then average people in India, when I ask, they always, oh, black magic, like that kind of. So that I just wonder why. And also Dakini, when we say Dakini in Tibetan, something, oh, very enlightened female, respect like this. But Indians say, oh, that's scary. So I wonder why.
So Lamaji's depiction is astutely, absolutely accurate. And in this case, I need support and help from Lamaji and all the other Dharma practitioners, because there have been a grave injustice of this misunderstanding. Honestly, the only reason I am walking out of my duty, a full-time job, to be an advocate of the lineage is by observing the depravity of social awareness of what it is. Like a Dakini, Lamaji mentioned very clearly, people are scared of Dakini. In every single Shaiva Tantras, if you go, Dakini is the yogini situated in the Muladhara Chakra, and only upon the awakening of Dakini that you even have a chance to worship Guhya Kali. So Dakini is a deity, the foundation, not just Dakini, we have Rakini, Lakini, Kakini, all these yogini kula, and we both came, actually Buddhist Tantra and Shaiva Tantra are the children of the same mother, Yogini Kula. But what happened, one brother continued to be understood in a correct way, another brother got misunderstood. He was not a thief, but the public accused him of thievery. So then it comes to all of us, Dharma-minded and truth-minded people, to support and to explore first, not because I said so, but go and examine on your own. And if you find that this is actual injustice, then it comes to us as our responsibility to speak the truth, that this is very wrong and we should not misrepresent Tantra in this derogatory way. You say Tantra, people get scared. Lamaji, I have told people have come to me, you practice Tantra, and I'm like, I'm going to turn you into a cat. They run away. Honestly, there is so much superstition. And then as a scholar, I could be happy writing some footnotes. But, you know, I live in this society. Another 10 footnotes does not make a difference in the world. And that is why I am out here and I need your help. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're getting close to time now. One comment I did want to make, because I've been both of your students for some time, and I've wondered about your question of bodhicitta. What I've come to realize is that it depends how we understand what wisdom is. When we understand wisdom as no self, right, then that creates a lack of connection between people. So we cultivate compassion that even if there is no one else, ultimately, relatively, I must show compassion to them. From the perspective of Hinduism, wisdom means recognizing that there is only one self. And so if that's the case, I don't need to cultivate compassion because you are me. So these are two different approaches that get to the same ultimate solution, which is that we have to have compassion for each other. Whether we recognize it as something that we need to cultivate, or whether it's something that we need to recognize that we all are all interconnected, we get there in the end. So this is at least my personal experience. With that, we are at time. So first off, I just want to thank everyone for being part of this. This is really a historic sort of meeting. It is the first time we've gotten these three teachers together from these different lineages. And it's the first such conversation, but I hope it will not be the last. So I would like to remind everyone that you got emails, and in the emails you can make a donation which will go equally to all these three teachers' organizations. Because they are all very enlightened beings, they're not going to plug their organization, so I'm doing it on their behalf, which is that Swami Sarvapriyananda just released a very important book called Fullness and Emptiness, available at your booksellers. Ācārya Ji is launching a new class October 5th on the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. I'd encourage you to go to Vimarsha Foundation and register for it. And Rinpoche is going to be doing an initiation and teachings on Kala Chakra October 3rd to 5th. And so I'd encourage you very much to look into this as well. We opened today with the aspiration prayer from the Jonangpa Lama of Dolpopa. And so with your permission, I'd like to close with a well-known dedication from the Hindu realm. And it's very fitting for the event that we're at because it's called the Shanti Mantra, which is a mantra for peace. And this... Oh, please.
One question.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah. Oh, please.
So this is many people question me is people say like this. Oh, if the enlightened nature within us, like this Shiva or whatever you call Buddha nature, whatever you call, if that is perfect, right? Then why we are still suffer here? Why this not powerful, huh? And since when we are suffer in the samsara? So they have that question. I have my answer, but I want to hear from you guys.
All right, we'll do a lightning round. The hardest problem ever, the problem of evil in a few seconds.
Ignorance, and ignorance is overcome by knowledge. So the real nature is already there. It's not powerless. It's because of that all of this is manifesting, and it will manifest as freedom very soon.
Suffering is explained in all the global cultures in two different ways. One, just like Swamiji said, and I'm sure Lamaji would agree, is avidya or ignorance, and another is sin. So we three agree that it's due to us not knowing our true nature. But from the Saivite perspective, I would also like to add that, life is not that bad. We are not just suffering. Maybe some monks are who are alone and in the forest and all, but I'm not only suffering. I'm also enjoying the world. Thank you.
Okay, I'll tell you quickly my answer. So my answer, I tell everybody, this suffering is illusion. It never existed. It's not true. It's all is not true. When you are enlightened, then you know it's not true. Just like you waken up from the dream. That's my answer.
All right, to close us out, let's get a hand. And so we'll close now with the dedication of the Shanti Mantra. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhaga Bhavet Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May all be happy. May all be free from illness. May everyone see what is good, and may no one suffer. May there be peace, peace, peace unto all. Thank you so much. Thank you.